Single carrier industrial boosters obviously require that carrier's approval in order for them to be placed in service. So the unfortunate conclusion of the report and order from our perspective is the following. For the most part, consumer boosters won't solve what I would call holistic cellular problems in the MDU space. They have limited applicability. The flip side of that is the alternative wideband industrial boosters, which are the more suitable technology for the MDU, probably are not going to get approved by the carriers. So the net of all of this is that you've got a whole class of technology that's outlined in this report and order that can solve problems in single-family houses that probably are not applicable to the MDU, MTU community. So that's kind of the synopsis of the report and order. Just a reminder that if you've got any questions, please submit them on the webinar control. At this point, we wanted to step back before we get into the possible solutions that we outlined before. Give you an idea, frankly, most people are familiar with this, but what really is causing these kinds of problems? Why are these problems seem to be cropping up now more than ever? A couple things. We've identified really four major items. Number one is it's all about the macro cell design approach. Without getting into the nuances of how do you design cellular sites, they're essentially geared towards providing outdoor coverage, not in-building dense suburban urban coverage. So they're really designed for a certain geography, not a density of users. That's issue number one. Issue number two is all cellular providers essentially use a very limited number of licensed frequencies. And if you, as an example, a typical carrier in a city might have approximately 100 megahertz of available spectrum for its services, and you can compare that or contrast that to every building with a Wi-Fi network in it's going to have 650 megahertz of spectrum, although it's unlicensed spectrum. So you've got a limited number of frequencies in use by these folks also. Number three, which is really starting to be play a big part in the problems in these buildings, is the whole lead design process. Things like low emission glass essentially block signals from getting inside. That's starting to cause all types of problems with the buildings that you're putting up. And finally, if the signal does get inside, as you all know, users these days are all carrying 2 to 3 devices that want to access the network. They've all got a smartphone, they've all got a tablet, they've all got a laptop. A lot of these devices are trying to make contact with the outside cellular network for service. So you roll it all up, and you've got some problems indoors, obviously. Just as another aside here, the same kind of issues you've got on the cellular side, you're going to see on the public safety side. Lead materials also block first responder radio signals. These are typically licensed private frequencies used by your police and fire. But you're going to find for new buildings that are going up that you not only have a cellular problem indoors, but you probably are going to have a public safety frequency problem indoors also. And just be aware of the fact that a lot of municipalities will not now grant certificates of occupancy to building owners until they demonstrate that they've got an in-building system that supports first responder radios also. So at the end of the day, what's going on here with your residents? How do these in-building cellular problems impact them? Clearly, you've got poor cellular voice coverage, as we alluded to, because of the design of these networks. Most users in apartment buildings these days are using their smartphone as their primary telephony device. 80% of them, frankly, use that as their only device and don't have landline phones anymore. You've got limited data capacity, even if the coverage is available, and that's because of the spectrum play and the lack of frequencies. Because of the lack of voice coverage, you've got limited 911 services that may put residents at risk. And you've also got, frankly, these residents walking around with phones that can't go from the apartment to the corridor to the amenity area without dropping a call. So it turns into a very frustrating experience for them. So here you are as a building owner. You've spent hundreds of millions of dollars. You've hired the world's best architects, the world's best design firms. You've done all your research. You put this thing up, and now you've got a problem that you are being asked to solve that you didn't create. And that's the kind of position you put yourself into. in terms of your issues, you've got residents who are walking into your buildings that want to lease or buy apartments, but if there's no voice coverage, they may go to the next building, right? You've invested in all types of energy efficient buildings, and then you can't get the service indoors from the carriers. As you know, poor voice service translates into more complaints from residents, tenants, and guests. They're looking for you to solve their problems. The same issues your residents have, frankly, your staff may have, because they count on these smartphones for a lot of services that they're using also. Yeah. You may have your staff using tablets that connect to these outdoor networks, and if the tablets are running your property management system and have problems, you're going to have problems running your operational systems at your property. So, a lot of problems. What are the solutions? A couple things we want to talk about, and we're going to go from kind of the low level maybe to the top solutions. Number one, we talked about it before, consumer-grade boosters.
Yeah.
As much as these aren't suitable for most apartment residents, you will find that for some folks it's the thing to go do. The issue with the consumer booster is you have to buy them out of the box. You can buy them online from various companies. You can go to the Best Buy, for example, and get one.
That's always how it is.
All the products being sold by these organizations now need to be FCC
sales has quotas they
certified.
have to make every quarter.
When the user gets them, you have to register them on the carrier's website typically.
Rushing to get all their quota done.
Just because the carriers haven't given a blanket permission to use these, however, they still reserve the right to turn the booster off or ask the consumer to turn the booster off if there's any kind of interference.
As long as you're getting that stuff on Amazon working, and then
this is a solution if you've got sporadic issues within apartments that have the ability for the user to run the cable to the outside.
Backed up.
So it's certainly not a holistic solution for all properties. Or when you've got 2, 3, 4, 5 users of the property experiencing intermittent.
Yeah, no, I mean we did a review,
the exterior of
probably like within the last 2 months.
As we alluded to before, this is really a solution for folks that live in single-family.
No, I mean really only the the stuff we discussed about just the prioritization.
Number 2 is the other end of the
what
spectrum.
we discussed like not long ago, and then just I mean really right now the priority is just to get everything up there and make sure we're backed up properly.
Cooperation with the carriers.
Yeah, that's really it.
Typically using base transceiver stations as an RF signal source. These are very high.
No, that's good. That's a good thing to do. Definitely.
They are need carrier approval, obviously. They're usually fiber-based solutions. They essentially turn your entire building into a cell site. So they are expensive. Typically, you'll find a DAS is in the $1.50 to $2.50 square foot range. They require an ID wave design typically that's given to the carriers. It goes through the approval process. They're slow to deploy. They have traditionally been used in large venues, places where you have not only perhaps a coverage issue challenge, but also more likely a capacity issue. So if you're building an arena, a stadium, a mall, someplace where you've got a large density of users, you're going to want to buy a DAS system. That really is the product of choice when you've got a capacity issue. There are a number of companies in that space. The DAS Forum is kind of their champion. They're a subsection of PCIA. I believe the organization is now called the HetNet Forum. But many of you who built large buildings in the past possibly have looked to them for your